So today I'm going to try to make a tie-dye mandala tapestry with Buddha and the elephants in the center. So my aunt had this big old bedspread that she was getting rid of, and she asked me if I wanted it, and so of course I said yes because I could tie-dye it. And so it also had this cool little design on it which made it even nicer. So I started by just laying the whole thing out flat and pulling one corner over to the other. And that ends up making kind of a big triangle. So here's that. And then I pulled the other side of the triangle over to the far end, and then pulled the other two ends into the very center, and then folded it again to make a really small triangle. So then I just took some strips of cloth and I tied it in sections. If you have a smaller blanket, you can use rubber bands, but this thing is huge, so I couldn't use rubber bands for this. So I just tied it in a bunch of evenly spaced sections with these little strips of fabric. So there it is once I've got it all tied out into several different sections. And so then when you're tie-dyeing, wear plastic gloves so that you don't end up with dye all over your hands. These are reusable, so you can use them over and over again. And so I just used the spray dye for this. Normally I would use my own homemade dye, but I really wanted the bright colors for this, so I used bought dye. And you just go through spraying each section of your tied-off blanket, and then once you've got enough dye on it, you just squeeze it so that it penetrates all the layers. You just want to make sure that your blanket, I forgot to say, you want your blanket dipped in water before you put the dye on, because that will help the dye go through all the layers. And so I just continued on, putting on my whole little rainbow of colors here, and squeezing them all together to penetrate the layers with the dye until I had the whole thing covered. So then once you've got everything dyed, just take a piece of plastic, and you want to wrap the entire thing in the plastic. That helps keep it moist so the dye, again, goes through all the layers, or as many layers as it can. This was a really thick blanket, so it didn't go through all the layers, but you want to help it as much as you can. And so this was after I unfolded it. Again, this was a really thick blanket, so it didn't go through, so I just took my spray bottles and I touched it up around the edges, like where it was white, and some of the color in the middle, just to give it a little more color. Make it look a little better. And so there it is hanging on the line. That was after I touched it up, obviously, and fixed it so all the colors were there. And I left it out there to get rained on a few times so that the excess dye would wash out. And so then I just searched the internet until I found some Buddha silhouettes that I liked, and I found a lotus blossom as well. And I just cut these out of felt. I traced them onto a piece of felt and cut them out. And then I just used some spray adhesive to attach them to the center of the tapestry. So that's right in the center of the tie-dyed tapestry. And then I cut some elephants out of some paper. Because I'm using this as a wall tapestry, I'm not going to be washing it, so I can use paper, otherwise you'll have to use fabric. And again, I just spray adhesive those on. And so here's what the tapestry looks like when it's all done and everything's all dried. And now it is time to find myself. Whoa, dude! I totally just found myself! I didn't even know I was missing.